Okay, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for being with us here today on this wonderful morning to join our Ricoh webinar series. So, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Thomas. I'll be the MC for today's webinar. The title of today's webinar is Sort the Mess, Stop the Bleed, Reorganizing Data and Documents to Improve Efficiency and Reduce Wastage. Ladies and gentlemen, before I pass it on to our distinguished speaker for today, allow me to bring about a bit of introduction about what it is that Ricoh is currently doing. Now, ladies and gentlemen, many of you here at present may have thought in the past that Ricoh is printing or photocopy company. This is what most people, the general public, would say. But ladies and gentlemen, Ricoh has already transformed towards digitalization. So today's topic of this webinar is actually about enterprise content management, which is an essential component in today's business world. So before I proceed, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to take a moment to share a video. Give me a moment.
Are you focusing on the future? Is information propelling your business forward? The way we communicate, collaborate, and create is evolving. It's vital to harness information and transform it into an asset that drives business outcomes and agile work experiences. At Ricoh, we believe that by converting information into actionable insights and freeing people to focus on creating value, we can unlock the potential in every business. That's why we bring people and technology together to simplify complexity, clarify direction, tackle obstacles, embrace diversity, and help you uncover opportunity so you can focus on forward. Let's move forward together.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that short video is basically an explanation of today's, I'll call it a short description of what Ricoh is focusing on today. So our key highlight is basically focus on forward. So from the focus on forward component, ladies and gentlemen, there are 4 components that we actually look into. Basically simplifying complexity, tackle obstacles, uncover opportunity, and clarify direction. So ladies and gentlemen, these 4 components that we'd like to highlight is basically a derivative of the 4 key pillars that Ricoh currently stands upon. So among the 4 key pillars, the first one would be digital workflow and automation, the hybrid workplace, cybersecurity, and cloud and IT. So these 4 key pillars are the offerings that Ricoh presents to the public today. So the first component, the digital workflow and automation, basically focuses on simplifying enterprise functions as well as clarifying workflows. Things that were manual in businesses as well as processes can now be automated, and Ricoh possesses the skills and the expertise to allow that to happen. Now, on the hybrid workplace model, we're talking about the recent pandemic has caused the need for businesses to become more streamlined, to allow more rotation, whereby working from home or working from the office creates a necessity where businesses must remain seamless. To explain this further, that would mean that businesses are able to allow staff to remain efficient, both at home and at work. On the cybersecurity component, we're talking about protection towards sensitive data. With the world reaching a more digitalized phase, we will notice that imminent threats become more evident to a lot of businesses. Many of us has heard about phishing emails, or even worse, there will be basically hackers, Trojan horses. These are, in fact, there are things that are even more advanced than this already. And we have the expertise to ensure that your data, your valuable data, is actually protected. As for cloud and IT, we help businesses convert anything which is manual into basically cloud as well as technology solutions to simplify your business processes. So ladies and gentlemen, today's presentation will focus on digital workflow and automation. The component of it is enterprise content management. So that concludes my presentation for the moment. Now I would like to call upon our presenter, Mr. Michael Rich, to begin his presentation. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Fantastic. Thank you, Thomas. Awesome. So I want to welcome everyone to today's session. I see a couple familiar faces, so welcome to the guys joining us back. Also welcome to the new guys. So a quick introduction. Give me a second. Sorry guys, just having a slight technical glitch. There we go. All right, so just a brief introduction to who I am, where I've been through, and obviously the space I come from. So currently the IT solutions manager or IT specialist manager here at Ricoh, Malaysia. I've been dealing with ECM or in the ECM space for about 12 years, and I've led numerous digital transformation projects all around the world, both in public and in private sector. A couple of countries we see there that I have done these transformation projects in, being Ghana, Nigeria, Kenya, Sierra Leone, South Africa, and obviously Malaysia. So a quick walkthrough or just a showcase of what the agenda is going to be about today. The first one being waste management. We're going to have a zoom in on typical waste points or areas of waste within organizations. We're also going to be looking at the digital transformation model, which is a very important tool when it comes to approaching digital transformation. And then, as Thomas mentioned, we're going to be looking at the ECM portfolio, the Enterprise Content Management portfolio. So, waste. Naturally, we all understand that there is a lot of waste in the world, and we want to try and reduce that. Why do we need to waste? Obviously, driving past any refuge garden dump, we would see the amount of waste we generate both personally and professionally, and the need for this change or to do things differently is definitely a huge requirement, being both a huge environmental impact that we want to try and just simplify. So no presentation or no webinar is complete without a couple eyebrow-raising statistics or thought-provoking quotes. And we get straight into it here with a survey being done with overall time spent managing information and searching for this information being about 45 minutes, which is roughly 8% of a typical employee's workday, which we can all agree is quite scary. And obviously with employees not being able to find this information 46% of the time, that also speaks to operational efficiencies, right? If we can't find the information we're looking for, how are we expected to operate on an efficient level? And just something to think about with obviously today being the age of silicon chips, why is most of the company's information, why is most of their documents stuck in a cardboard box? And ultimately, speaking to the previous point I made, it's not what you don't know that can hurt you, it's obviously what you can't find. A couple more statistics we have here, where the Nucleus research tells us that for every almost $9 spent, we return we return almost $9 spent for every $1 to SMB customers. So the key value drivers in this context being increased user productivity and cost savings. Now, speaking about broken business processes or disconnected business processes, almost 76% of the survey respondents in this case reported significant business risks to compliance incidents due to broken document processes. Almost 25% of respondents said that they lost major companies as a result to these document process failures. Now, these are all aspects of waste management, and we'll have a look at which category these specific wastes fall into. The last point there being 33% of document-driven processes are defective, according to their process owners. And this is something we see in a day-to-day case when we interact with different companies. We ask the different stakeholders within a business process, how are things typically done? Almost all of the times there's a disconnect. One person believes the process follows this way, the other person believes the process follows a different way. So 33% being process defective. So categorizing or classifying different kinds of wastes, we see here typically being categorized in these three categories. And some of you will know the iceberg analysis. We here use it against waste management. So the first category being waste that's quantified, it's easily recognized. So things that we see on a day-to-day experience, usually things that you can walk up and touch, things like, capital, equipment, service, paper, these are things that are typically laying around the office or that we interact on a day-to-day basis, things that we receive often POs for, or invoices for. The second category is waste that is quantifiable but not often recognized. And we look at things like your floor space. So this is a very big point we're going to be touching on today. Network connectivity, energy use, as well as downtime. I'll highlight that as well. When we don't have access to our documents, when we have disconnected or dysfunctional business processes, these are all part of this waste category that are not easy, that are not often recognized. And the last section or the classification we have is waste that is not quantifiable and not recognizable. So we have as well there transaction or purchase decisions, lengthy approval decisions within business processes, underperformers within these processes not having that operational transparency in order to improve and change our processes. So paper, waste disposal, user productivity, also a very important point. Users that are not efficient within their workspace, or that, again, we saw on the earlier slides, that are looking for information. Spending time looking for information is definitely an example of inefficiencies. Sorry, just a quick housekeeping. If you guys have any questions, if there are any points you'd like clarity on, please feel free to type them into the chat box. We will have a section at the end of this webinar where we can then unpack your questions and go into some more detail. Moving along, a couple more statistics, looking at the value of accounts payable automation. The average cost of processing an invoice in an environment with low automation can be 20 times greater than an environment with a high level of automation. And this covers the entire workflow or the entire business process when we're looking at invoice processing, from receiving your invoice, the decision, up until the payment, up until all of the notifications involved, 20 times, chance to get this process more efficient. Also looking at the HR automation, two very paper-intensive, human-intensive departments. The average cost of processing an expense report in an environment with a high level of automation is 39% lower than an environment with low level of automation. Processing 1,000 reports monthly, we're looking at an annual savings of an estimated almost 440,000 ringgit. Now this, again, very intensive when it comes to human, when it comes to decision making, as well as the paper element as well, those consumable things, that quantifiable waste that we spoke about earlier. So typical areas for immediate revenue impact. So through our years of engaging with customers, we've realized there's somewhat of a pattern, and I'll speak about this pattern in a later slide as well. But things that we've realized on how things are currently being done versus how they can and should be done in the future. We'll look at things like a manual, time-intensive paper shuffling. We all know about file 13, right? Where that certain section on your desk is where you put papers that you plan to get to, but unfortunately we never get to those, right? We look at also areas where we've got lost, misfiled documents, keeping staff from having insight into these processes. Again, file 13. We look at information silos, preventing collaboration. So each department having their own set of information, having disconnected processes, disconnected discussions rather, and not having these cross-departmental, open, insighted information sharing sessions. Continually increasing operational costs, major aspect to look at. Human intensive data capturing, so keyboard warriors smashing information into the softwares, none of it being automated. We've looked at possible risks here between spelling errors, miscapturing information, all manual, very human, very time intensive processes. And single purpose applications, also one of the biggest things we've come across, having software that's not scalable or having customers required to purchase the entire product suite on day one. Now, again, this is something we promote and we try and steer away from, having that HR, or rather the IT department, managing 14, 15 different kinds of solutions. You've got different kind of service agreements. And obviously from your end user experience, it's very cumbersome having to switch through on different applications, minimizing this, minimizing that, etc. So these are the I would say things we've noticed currently within the in the marketplace. So after implementing the ECM solution, our ECM softwares, we take that manual, time-intensive paper shuffling, we introduce the automated filing, automated routing, as well as approval. There's a whole bunch of other aspects we can look at here, like auto reminders within business processes, dynamic escalations, all different kinds of features that we look at to improve efficiencies there. Better decision making around issues that impact our bottom line. So that's where we've got that lack or reduce or reduction rather of lost or missed file documents. Information silos before and after, we've got those are now scalable across our teams, making information easier to share. So having your centralized document repository, making that easily available to all of your different departments as well as your different stakeholders, both internally as well as externally. So moving from the continually increasing operational costs, we're looking at low risk, moderate investments with a quick ROI. We do cover an ROI case study of one of our customers in later slides, so please stand by. Human intensive data capturing, we revolutionize, we transform that into standardized data collection or document classification, reducing that human error. Point here being we try and automate a lot of that document or rather data collection with the software, with the ECM products that we provide, just increasing that ingestion, that classification part of our day-to-day experience. Single purpose applications now become more easier to manage with the introduction of ECM, the economy of scale, start small and grow the organization, grow the software within your organization. So with the ECM application being very modular, we can start phase one with a certain scope, just focused, for example, on document management. We can spend a year or whatever length managing the documents, creating that digital library. And then phase two, we look at different parts, maybe your business process automation. So point being on this is very scalable, easy to grow, start small and grow. So now we're looking at some of our customer stories. It's one of those cases where, don't believe me, you take it from my customer. This specific customer we're going to zoom in on is from the oil and gas, as well as edible oils, as it says there. And let's have a look at the customer's profile just to set the stage. So again, they're in the oil and gas within the edible oils industry, their particular offshore platform fabricator, as well as the onshore contract in general. To date, over 50% of the customers' homegrown engineering solutions are exported and installed to over 40 countries worldwide. So as we can agree, that's quite a good footprint. The group has now begun an outward push to become a more dominant player in the Asia Pacific, with Malaysia as its hub of operations. The group is building an overseas network. In early 2017, it's established its first overseas office in Singapore. So this company is growing, and the point is it needs a partner to grow with it. It marks the beginning of the group's regional footprint. In 2009, it established its operation its operation in 2011 in China. And in 2011, it established its Bangkok office in Thailand. So again, very close relationship with this customer we've been able to develop over the years. We've been able to grow the ECM solution with it, and obviously enabling a lot of this growth that we see here today. A couple of the challenges we'll highlight. So the data file library was not secured. So they essentially had a Windows environment where they just had scan to folders. Some of you guys might find this relatable. They just had all of the documents within a simple Windows environment. None of it was secure, none of it was indexed. So searching for this document was very manual. They had to go through folders and they had to go through different information silos to find the information. Again, not centralized. So they had pieces of information, pieces of documents residing on different users' laptops or in different file servers. No records management. This is something we'll speak about in later sessions, where the retention of these documents was not in place. And this is a very important point. If you've got an ECM solution, or if you've got a document management solution, fast forward 10, 20 years down the line, when you've got a couple million images, you want to be able to make sure you're managing the life cycle of your documents, or your records rather. Records being hard to find, this does speak to the second point we have there, or sometimes not often found at all. Reprinting these files obviously increases our waste, consumables, paper, staplers, etc. And the next point being losing track of these documents, document workflows due to the manual approval process. Again, file 13. Applying for a certain application, whether it be leave or whatever we're applying for, having that application sit on someone's desk and gone, never to be seen again. That process now stands still, and that's obviously something that they were struggling quite badly with. Key stakeholders would delay the process, again, with those files sitting on someone's desk or someone taking a holiday, taking a break. That process now stands still. There's no automated escalation. There's no reminders, in fact, unless you are going to be sitting at that person's desk 24/7 asking for updates. End users unable to get status updates on submissions. Also, it speaks to this lack of operational transparency that we see typically in customers today. So here we have just a summary of the customer's challenges. There are a couple more, but we obviously didn't want to have this be a death by PowerPoint session. So we have a couple of the main points here that we do solve, or that we did solve for them. So here we have the slide. Basically, it's just a topology of how the system works and how it was installed and distributed to them. Key points of improvements. The digital library, there was indexed enabled text searches and secured with individual user group access permissions, improving informational security. So if you're an HR employee or you're an IT employee, you log into your system, you only see information that's relevant to you. So it's accessible and it's safe. So we create sales proposals or quotations digitally to auto email to the customer. So once that email has been created and once that file has been sent, there's no need to print it out. There's no need to courier it off to that person. It's automatically sent out throughout the ECM system. Standardized processes preventing user circumvention. Very, very, very important. If I submit for leave and my manager's gone, I don't have the ability to quickly go and ask my friend to approve the workflow for me or to approve my leave for me. These standardized processes help us enforce governance and compliance. Approve our purchase order approval process by implementing a workflow feature. So this is all business process automation. Versioning control and documents. Documents, as they come in, they grow. Information gets added, things get changed. We need to be able to make sure we're managing the version of these documents accurately, and we do that with the ECM application. So as an overall, a couple benefits that we can look at with the introduction of ECM. We've improved operational productivities. Head of departments have the ability to see what processes are currently running in their departments. They can see, again, potential bottlenecks. They can see the high achievers as well as the underperformers. So that it's the word operational transparency, you're going to hear me say it 100 times today. So operational productivity is we've improved that operational transparency. Keeping up with information retrieving and improving the data accuracy. So as we see in the middle there with intelligent indexing, data access security. Now the intelligent indexing, a very strong feature when it comes to recognizing the content as well as the location of this content on our documents. So we've got an element of machine learning when we're looking for our content. Right. Business process action history improved. There was the word again, operational transparency. Business process action history, we'll see who has approved, who has declined, if there's any comments within that process, a very important point. The next one being mobile functionality, out of office approvals. Also, with the COVID-19 pandemic, that's we're just slowly but surely getting a handle on, has taught us a couple main things, and one of those are mobility from the office environment, being able to sit from home, sit on the train, sit anywhere in the world, in fact, and still be able to access your documents as well as participate in your business processes. The next success story we'll look at is a company that's in the logistics industry. And as the logo says there, we implemented the DocuWare product for them. And let's have a look at some of their customer challenges. So manual printouts, so very paper intensive, a very paper dependent environment, duplicate copies of supporting documents, debit note, consignment notes, credit notes, etc. Manually combine all of these documents and post it to the customer. So again, we've got postage fees, we've got these human clips, we've got a lot of paper intensive or rather human intensive actions when it comes to distributing our information. Scan all the hard copy documents, rename the document, keep it in the shared folder manually, again, manual. Due to the shared folder being without an index, the retrieving was difficult. It was not very easy to find. So the customer requests took long. This complicated the sales process, and this made it a very cumbersome, very cumbersome purchasing experience from the customer's perspective. No records management feature in the shared folder, so we had no retention in place. Manual paper-based processes consumed a lot of paper, again, that waste. And due to the processes needed to be handled manually, and the information not being available, again, very slow, very cumbersome business process experience. So the value with introducing the DocuWare product to our customer, some of the key improvements was the auto index, replacing that manual document distribution. We integrated into their third-party applications. We were able to share information with those applications as well as retrieve from it, which just simplified our data capture, which simplified just the end user experience. Customer direct retrieval, supporting documents with encrypted URL link. It's very secure when it comes to retrieving these documents or viewing these documents from the outside, looking in. And the key benefits here was we were able to improve the operational productivities. We reduced their paper consumption and their postage costs. An up-to-date invoice supporting document approval via customers. So speeding up payment collection process. Also a very important point to touch on. And no backlog of scanning, storing, fast retrieval. So as these documents would enter the environment, we would automatically capture them, index them, classify them, and store them within the system. No need for manual intervention whatsoever. And once it was in the environment, once it was in the ECM application, it was easy to retrieve from anywhere. So this is probably going to be the hardest hitting slide when it comes to the ROI for this last logistics-based company. We're going to have a look at some of the typical expenses that they experienced before introducing the ECM application. And we see things like monthly headcount expenses, the average salary, as well as overtime. We look at monthly paper consumption being pretty high, 30 reams. As we can see, that's quite a high number. And then monthly dot matrix printer ribbon. This is still, unfortunately, in this day and age, the dot matrix printing is still a requirement. Logistics companies are plagued with having their labels require this type of technology. The monthly print volume, we see the total expenses there of being 6,000 ringgit. And the monthly postage expenses. So having this paper copy now being sent, distributed to all around the country, as we see, they're very costly experience. Data retrieval times and document storage. They occupied one floor as a document storage place, just documents occupying the entire floor. Now, with the introduction of the DocuWare product, we can see some pretty impressive information. We've had no need, or they've had no need for any overtime as the operations run efficiently, with employees being able to participate from home potentially or from anywhere. There's no need for that kind of expense. We've reduced the paper consumption by half, from 40 reams to 20 reams. And the dot matrix printing, we've also reduced significantly. The printing volume, in fact, is also reduced in half. Monthly postage expenses, there's no need for that. As we're distributing our information digitally, there's no need for any printouts or any distribution, etc., etc. We can see the data retrieval times as well as the document storage, able to reduce that storage by 50%, which is pretty impressive. And to summarize, previously they were spending, as we can see there, 24,700 ringgit a month on all of these different kinds of operational expenditures. With the introduction of the DocuWare solution, we were able to reduce that to where it is now of 15,700. So quite a large improvement. 8,000, almost 9,000 ringgit per month approximately, and over 5 years, as we see that is quite a scary number. So when we look at return on investment over 5 years, this solution has basically paid itself off. It's paid itself off, and now from year 6, year 7, this can be clean, efficient revenue and margin for this company. So now we've looked at some of the we've had a look at some of the customers. We've had a look at some of the reasons why we need to improve the way we do business, but how do we go about it? So a summary as to what slows down the pace of companies today. Things we already know. Information being difficult to manage. I've used some of the examples previously. People being stretched to do more. One person resigns, that person isn't automatically replaced. His lateral team now needs to carry more weight. They need to perform more functions. A typical thing that we see. As well as security. Is there enough security in our organization? Can someone walk up to your desk and take a file off of your desk? That is possible in most open plan offices. And with you practicing hot desking, I'm sure it's very realistic. So tools being frustrating and complex. So we've got lots of different applications. We've got Outlook that we need to manage. Our day-to-day line of business applications, all different kinds of tools, all speaking to themselves, a very disconnected, very frustrated experience. How do we improve? What do we do? How do we go about doing it? So we understand, as I've mentioned, there's a lot of different applications out there. There's things that can make us happy and obviously very frustrated. Work enablement, digital transformation, employee engagement, all terms that we now need to understand and make sense of. So how do we make sense of such a busy ecosystem, such a busy space? We introduce enterprise content management. Thomas did mention it earlier. What is enterprise content management? We see a whole bunch of text here. I'm not going to read that to you simply because I'm probably going to put you to sleep. But what I can do is I'll simplify ECM a little bit further. So ECM being the strategies, the methods and the tools that we use to deliver, capture, manage, store, preserve our information. And if it still isn't too clear at this stage, we can simplify it even further. So enterprise being your company, the content is your data, the information that you generate on a day-to-day business, and manage it is how do we organize it, store it, and make it accessible to you at the end of the day. So we've got those tools and those features to do exactly that. But ECM hasn't always been ECM. ECM has evolved throughout the past 5 years. Originally, it was known as DMS, Document Management System or Solutions, and that was purely just designed to store your stuff, store your documents in whatever sort of order that you needed. It was purely designed just to manage your content. With the introduction of business process automation and a couple other features that we will get to later, DMS has evolved to ECM, where we're digitizing your processes within a single repository. Records management component is also something that's taken DMS to that ECM space. But as we speak, ECM is also evolving into that next phase, into that next stage rather, where we're able to incorporate different kinds of elements, machine learning, AI. We're even able to integrate into your back-end banking system where we can receive payments through a business process. That's just one example of many. But point is here is that we're keeping abreast of the technology, moving from ECM into CSP. And we'll have a look at what that looks like here. So here we have the 4 columns, typical columns within an enterprise content management solution. We've got document management, business process management, records management, as well as the web content management. I'm not going to read each of those features individually. I will highlight a couple of them individually. The access control being a very, very key element when we are addressing security requirements. That could be relevant maybe in the legal sector, on the financial departments, where access control to your documents is extremely crucial. Now, to what level can we go in regards to security? Obviously, folder level being naturally obvious, but we can go as far as the text within a document. So if you've got certain financial figures or you've got certain legal chapters or paragraphs you want to black out or completely remove, we can use these features to go, or rather to improve the security of your documents. Business process management, we've got the workflow elements as well as the notification elements. These are all components that promote operational transparency. And records management, retention schedule being the biggest point there, as well as compliance. But retention schedule is something that we don't really interact with, or rather we don't find in customers that are having a records management system. So for those that don't know, retention schedule is the time period to which you have to keep your information, whether it be 2, 5, 7, or 10 years. Each document type has its own retention schedule. With an ECM system with records management components, we can automatically manage the life cycle of your document. So at the end of the 2-year, 5-year, 7 period, whatever, we can then move that record from an active record to a dormant record. Or if it's something that you don't need to keep, we can actually delete it for you automatically. So if you've got an organization with a couple million images, you've got no need for keeping unnecessary content. And the last section we see here is the web content management. So web access, mobile access, online forms, collaboration. This all speaks to mobility, being able to operate and do what you do in the office from anywhere in the world. Now, this is the 4 pillars of ECM. We are looking, and as I've mentioned, to moving towards the content services platform, being CSP. And some of the features we introduce with the CSP platform is the robotic process automation, payment gateways, like I mentioned, digital signatures as well as e-signatures, the machine learning components, and then Power BI integrations which take those dashboards and that analytics to the next level. So we look at the problems facing the organizations currently. We have the information being difficult to manage. With the introduction of ECM, we now have the ability to make, or rather have improved decision making. People being stretched to do more, now they're able to work without any compromise. Security always being protected, data always being protected to ensure privacy. Tools, frustrating and complex, we switch that over and make it intuitive, usable, and future ready. But where do we begin? We know why, we know how, but where do we start? Fortunately, ECM and CSP fits into any department that you've got. We're able to improvise, or rather we're able to improve any business process within any department, as long as it follows a business logic. And as long as it's got some form of an application, we can use these tools to improve these operations. We look at accounting, invoice processing, accounts payable, accounts receivable, very, very good examples. HR, we've got travel request, claims, performance reviews, onboarding, offboarding, etc. For the legal department, contract management being a very, very important aspect. Logistics, proof of deliveries, vendor management, very important elements that we use to ECM to digitize, research and development, as well as purchasing departments. So where do we begin? As we see here, pretty obvious. We can start almost anywhere. But also, how do we go about keeping sustainable, or rather, how do we go about introducing sustainable digital transformation? And as we see here, the digital transformation model being a 5-step, 5-phase program. Again, one of the patterns we've been able to uncover during our interactions with customers. And I'll go about simplifying the first 3 stages of our digital transformation model. And we typically use this model to essentially show customers where they currently are, right? And then how do we go about taking that organization to the next level? So we'll look at some of the key pain points different organizations experience or go through when being in those different stages. First stage being digitizing your documents. Typical pain points here are excessive storage costs and retrieval costs, risk of losing information, losing those documents, no control over who can access these documents, in general, a very paper-heavy environment, right? In stages 2, where we were looking at organizing your content, typical pain points experienced there, very paper-based data entry, nothing being automatic. We've got no shared access to documents. Again, they're difficult to find and redundant work activities. Sections within the stage 3, key pain points there are very time-consuming manual processes. Processes are inconsistent, disorganized, and the lack of data integration between different applications, again, speaks to my earlier point of having those single-purpose applications, and difficulty in complying with regulations. Now, stages 4 and 5, I will just briefly cover them there. The lack of data policy oversight. The reason why I'm going over 4 and 5 is typically through our engagement with customers, we've noticed that they're either pre-stage 1 or stage 1, 2, or 3. We're not yet at stage 4. Some of our current customers that are using our ECM tools are currently at 4 and 5, but I don't think they're on this channel today. But these are things to look forward to, things that you can take advantage of once you have a fully fledged digital transformation. So we've covered some of the key pain points experienced within these different or individual stages. Let's have a look at some of the key benefits that we bring about using the digital transformation model. So key benefits in stages 1, we've got the reduction of document storage expenses. Secure critical documents from disaster recovery, very, very, very huge point, especially when you're looking at the recent occurrence of flash floods. We've got companies that are currently going underwater. Flood damage, document damage are all a serious consideration. Secure critical documents, with disaster recovery, yes. Easily manage access to sensitive content, a paperless environment or less paper-intensive environment. Key benefits looking at stage 2, minimal data entry and reduced human error, right? Centralized, secure document access. We enable document collaboration and fewer duplicate work tasks. Stage 3, key benefits here. With the DTM model, we are increasing productivity with the elimination of manual tasks. We standardize or map out our processes. Again, this speaks to the reduction or the reduction of user circumvention. And easily integratable between different applications. So we can easily see the ECM being a middleware, an application that fits in between all of your other business applications, being able to pull the information from your business processes and feed them into these third-party applications. And simplifying compliance that addresses our regulatory concerns. So in the healthcare sector, this is important when it comes to document storage, for example. How do we go about compressing our images? How do we go about making these accessible? And that also speaks to the legal sector, etc. So here we have, again, the digital transformation model. Very easy for us to take this process, or rather this framework, and then use your current day-to-day environment, understand where you are, and then ultimately, how do we go and take you to the next stage or next level? So what happens from here? So the first step, naturally, in changing is to figure out where you currently are. So we are offering a service for you guys today where you can reach out to Ricoh, and we will do an assessment for you on your current operations, see what stage you're in, and how we can go and help you move to the next stage. In closing, I've got a video here from a company that has used our ECM tools. They're currently based in Thailand, and let's hear what they have to say.
My name is Linawat Chua Ratanapong, and my company is Jinseng Huat Auto Part. We are selling spare part and distribute all over the country in Thailand. And my position is Executive Director. As I said that it should be finished every day, so it takes 1 day to finish it. Now, I think should be 1 hour. We use those people to do something else. So we don't have to add more staff for the company. Otherwise, if we are growing, we have more invoice. It means that we have to have more staff. Now you can grow as much as you can. So it's then no need that you have to put the staff into for the account receivable department. So those people can do a better job, not just something that boring. We can say that it's a boring business. So we think that it will be good for them and for the company also.
Excellent. So I think with that, we'll move on to the next stage, being questions. If there are any questions from the floor, you guys can go ahead and ask them now. So Thomas, do we have any questions?
Yeah, there's no questions at the moment, guys. If there's any questions from the floor, you can raise your hand, or if not, if you're uncomfortable speaking it out, you may always type it in the chat. So, do we have any questions from the floor? We have about 10 more minutes before the end. Never mind. While you guys are coming up with any questions, if you feel like emailing it to us, so please feel free. If you have you require any further information about our service offerings, you can of course drop us a message in the chat, or if you have attended through our sales agent's recommendation, you can always contact them. We have a question from the floor from Mei Ui. We subscribe to Microsoft 365, ECM versus Microsoft 365. I think those are two different components, Michael, but do you mind explaining?
Yes, definitely. So the Office 365, obviously including the SharePoint package, there is, and to be honest and to be transparent, there is duplication between SharePoint as well as the ECM applications that we do offer. Point here is that ECM that we offer is meant to supplement your current SharePoint deployment. There are shortcomings in SharePoint, for example, records management. There isn't necessarily a strong records management component within the SharePoint space. We can then make use of the ECM tools to manage and to rather improve that kind of a requirement. So, I mean, that's just one example of how we've got the SharePoint or the Office 365 in collaboration with ECM.
Okay, thank you very much, Michael. We have another question from VC. You mentioned CSP. How is it very different from ECM?
It's not very different at all. Thank you for that question, Mr. VC. It's not different at all. It speaks to the evolution of the DMS and the ECM application. It's moving into what is known as the CSP, being Content Services Platform. And the Content Services Platform is just an umbrella term for the different technologies that incorporate DMS, ECM, and those new technologies that the CSP will bring about. I did mention them earlier, things like payment integrations, machine learning, AI, RPI as well. So it just speaks more to an evolution of the ECM space.
Okay, we have another question from Andy Lee. My company has multiple software, Workday, SAP to name a few. How does it work and integrate in this regard?
Sorry, I missed that question. I'm just gonna. Sorry, could you maybe repeat the question?
Yes, it says my company has multiple software, Workday, SAP to name a few. How does it work and integrate in this regard?
Okay, that's a very technical question, Mr. Andy Lee. The answer is simple. So your SAP applications, all of them essentially push information to a data management application. The names here can vary between Oracle, between MySQL or Microsoft SQL. All of these form the backbone of your SAPs, your payrolls, etc. Now, ECM is, again, easily to position as a middleware. It speaks to these different data silos where we're able to push information to and retrieve from. So it makes the need for multiple applications pretty pointless, pretty irrelevant. ECM can be the one-all be-all application or the single-purpose application when looking at a environment with lots of different kinds of line of business applications.
Okay, are there any other questions? Mr. Andy Lee, hopefully that has answered your question. We have about 5 more minutes, so I think we have time to take 2 more questions. Do we have at least 2 more questions from the floor, ladies and gentlemen? Okay, ladies and gentlemen, in that case, we have another question from Andy again. On the local front, how many companies are using ECM solutions?
I can't speak to the customers that haven't gone through Ricoh to provide ECM, but we've got roughly about 9 companies that are currently using our ECM products. We've got 2 main brands that Ricoh promotes, and those 9 or so companies are stretched between the different ECM applications.
Okay, thank you very much. So to expedite things, ladies and gentlemen, please feel free to contact us again if you have any further questions. If you'd like us to do an assessment on your company, you can of course contact us either through our social media channels, through your respective sales agents, or even drop us an email at marketing@ricoh.com.my. Now, ladies and gentlemen, just to sum up the entire presentation today, as you all know, historically, Ricoh has made one of the best printers and office equipment in a long time. So, and even in present times, our machines, and not just not blowing water here, but what we're saying is our machines are still top-notch. But there is a reason why Ricoh today stands in the field of office services and office automation, because we believe that transformation is the most essential key. Ladies and gentlemen, complacency can destroy and create further pain points. If we are too comfortable where we sit today, we will never change. We will be overtaken. One of the best examples that I always use is Nokia. As ladies and gentlemen, if you remembered, more than 10, 20 years ago, there was a phone company called Nokia. It was the king of all phones. Overnight, Apple and Samsung rendered the entire company obsolete. Ladies and gentlemen, transformation will continue at a rapid pace, and we can't keep playing catch up. So we hope that throughout this, you have learned something new, and please take your time to actually ask us. We're more than happy to answer any questions you have via email or even approach us directly. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to conclude this webinar. Thank you so much for your time and participation in this, and have a fantastic day ahead. Thank you.